Between 2004 and 2022, a series of corporate acquisitions worth over $1 billion quietly reorganized the bicycle industry, placing some of the most recognized names in cycling under conglomerate ownership. The result is a widening gap between the logos stamped on down tubes and the actual engineering behind them. We investigated 10 brands using concrete criteria: bearing grades, drivetrain tiers, material specifications, serviceability, and manufacturing transparency. 7 of those brands no longer justify their price tags. 3 still do. The evidence starts with a name nearly every rider recognizes. In the 7th place, GT Bicycles stands as a cautionary example of how legacy engineering can erode under corporate consolidation. Founded in 1972 by Gary Turner, GT's reputation was built on the patented triple triangle frame and a commitment to high-strength chromoly and hydroformed alloys. That heritage began to unravel after the brand's transfer from Pacific Cycle to Doral Industries in 2004, and finally to Pawn Holdings in 2022. The sequence of deals totaled over $1 billion. The shift in ownership brought a clear pattern of cost-driven engineering. Catalogs from the past decade reveal a transition from premium 7005 aluminum to generic 6005 alloys, and a step down from Shimano Deore to Altus and Acera group sets on entry and mid-level models. The GT Aggressor, once a benchmark for affordable performance, now lists unsealed ball bearings and loose cup hubs, with service intervals that fall well below industry standards. Community repair data shows average repair costs of $220, outpacing the used market value after just 2 years. Technical documentation for recent models is sparse, and the absence of published bearing grades or torque specs further undermines confidence in the product. Unlike its earlier era, GT now relies on a centralized procurement network, standardizing parts across multiple brands to hit price targets rather than performance benchmarks. The result is a bike that trades on nostalgia, but delivers neither the durability nor the serviceability that defined its original appeal. For buyers in 2025, the GT logo on the down tube is no longer a guarantee of engineering substance. In the 6th place, Mongoose illustrates how rapid brand expansion and cost-driven procurement can erode the technical foundation of a once iconic name. Founded in Simi Valley, California in 1974, Mongoose became a fixture in BMX and mountain biking, with early frames prized for their durability and race-ready geometry. That reputation shifted dramatically after the brand's transfer to Pacific Cycle in 2001, then to Doral Industries in 2004, and finally to Pawn Holdings in 2022, each step reinforcing a strategy of mass-market scaling over engineering advancement. The result is visible at the component level. Modern Mongoose bikes, especially those distributed through big box retailers, are built around generic 6000 series aluminum or high-tensile steel frames, with drivetrain and hub specifications that prioritize cost above all else. Community repair data reveals that 99% of Mongoose hubs ship with unsealed, over-tightened bearings, often lacking sufficient grease. Reports from independent mechanics and consumer forums consistently document seized bearings, out of true wheels after less than 30 kilometers, and brake levers prone to cracking within the first 18 months of use. The average repair cost for a 2021 Mongoose XR35 stands at $180, eclipsing its used market value in under 2 years. Technical documentation is sparse, with little to no published information on bearing grades, spoke tension, or torque values. With procurement now centralized under Pawn's global category managers, parts are standardized across multiple brands, further diluting any claim to brand-specific engineering. For buyers in 2025, the Mongoose badge signals a product engineered to meet a price point, not a performance benchmark. The evidence is clear. Heritage branding, in this case, offers no safeguard against the measurable decline in durability and serviceability. In the 5th place, Schwinn stands as a stark illustration of how brand mythology can mask the realities of mass-market engineering. Founded in 1895, Schwinn once defined American cycling with the Paramount Racing Line and the Stingray Cruiser, both celebrated for their chromoly frames and robust componentry. That reputation faded after 2 bankruptcies, an asset sale in 2001 to Pacific Cycle, Doral Industries' $310 million acquisition in 2004, and ultimately Pawn Holdings' $810 million buyout in 2022. What remains is a brand name applied to frames built almost exclusively from high-tensile steel, a material with roughly 20% less tensile strength and 30% shorter fatigue life than 4130 chromoly. Current Schwinn models sold through big box retailers are typically 15% heavier than their historic counterparts, with generic sealed bearing hubs rated at low ABEC grades. Technical documentation is limited, and aftermarket support is minimal. Forum threads on Pink Bike and bike forums repeatedly cite the lack of compatible replacement parts and the rapid onset of frame and component failures. Repair data shows that the average cost to keep a 2022 Schwinn Highrider in safe working order exceeds its residual value within 2 years, with stem and headset replacements alone averaging $210. Unlike the era when Schwinn's name signaled a commitment to technical excellence, today's models are engineered to meet price points set by procurement teams, not by frame builders or race mechanics. The result is a product that leverages nostalgia for shelf appeal, but offers little in the way of long-term serviceability or documented engineering standards. For buyers seeking real value in 2025, the Schwinn badge is no longer a proxy for durability, repairability, or technical transparency. Subscribe for more evidence-based breakdowns of the brands shaping today's cycling market. In the fourth place, Cannondale represents the complex intersection between engineering innovation and the realities of corporate ownership. Founded in 1971 in Connecticut, Cannondale's early reputation was forged through oversized aluminum tubing and the CAAD, Cannondale Advanced Aluminum Development Series, which set new benchmarks for frame stiffness and weight in the 1990s and the early 2000s. That technical leadership continued after Doral Industries acquired the brand for approximately $200 million in 2008, but the subsequent transfer to Pawn Holdings in 2022 as part of an $810 million deal marked a decisive shift in product strategy. Post-acquisition, Cannondale's engineering roadmap diverged from its earlier focus on universal standards. The introduction of proprietary systems, most notably the BB30 and BB86 bottom brackets and integrated headsets, created a service ecosystem dependent on Cannondale-specific parts and tools. The BB30, first appearing on mid-tier models such as the Trail 7 and Super 6 Evo after 2014, promised lower weight and increased stiffness. Yet owner forums and independent mechanics have documented persistent creaking, premature bearing wear, and a lack of cross-compatibility with standard BSA or press-fit components. Replacement cups for these proprietary systems routinely cost $120 to $180, compared to $45 to $70 for standard alternatives, and are only available through authorized dealers, making field repairs and upgrades both more expensive and less accessible. Despite these challenges, Cannondale has not followed the full pattern of cost-driven downgrades seen in other legacy brands under Pawn. The company continues to specify sealed cartridge bearings and maintains higher-grade alloy construction on most models, resisting the shift to generic materials and unsealed hubs found elsewhere in the portfolio. However, the move to proprietary standards has undermined long-term serviceability and increased the total cost of ownership for riders, especially as technical documentation for these systems remains limited and compatibility matrices are rarely published. The evidence points to a brand that still invests in engineering, but whose commitment to open standards and repairability has eroded under portfolio-driven management. For buyers in 2025, the Cannondale name signals technical ambition, but only a close reading of the spec sheet and a careful check for proprietary components can reveal whether that ambition translates into lasting value. In the third place, the story of Huffy reveals the realities behind mass merchant private label bikes and the consequences of relentless cost engineering. Founded in 1892, Huffy once held a reputation for robust American-made frames, but its trajectory shifted as the company reoriented toward high-volume retail contracts with chains like Walmart and Target. Today, nearly all Huffy models are built from high-tensile steel, a material with a tensile strength of 1.2 gigapascals, nearly 20% lower than 4130 chromoly, and a fatigue life diminished by as much as 30%. This translates directly to greater frame weight and a higher risk of cracking under repeated stress. Component selection follows the same pattern. Unsealed ball-bearing hubs, low-grade linear pull brakes, and generic alloy fasteners are specified to hit price points, not to maximize durability or serviceability. Repair data aggregated from Quora, Road Hybrid Bike, and community forums shows that the average cost to keep a 2023 Huffy Rock Creek operational exceeds its residual value in less than a year, $140 in typical repairs against a resale value of just $80. Replacement parts are scarce, with limited aftermarket compatibility and little technical documentation available beyond basic owner's manuals. Service intervals for hubs and bottom brackets are rarely published, and bearing grades are unspecified, making it difficult for owners or mechanics to assess long-term reliability. Unlike higher-tier brands that publish full geometry tables and material specs, Huffy's technical disclosures are minimal, leaving buyers to rely on marketing claims rather than verifiable engineering data. The result is a product engineered for initial affordability at the expense of long-term value, repairability, and transparency. For consumers in 2025, the Huffy badge signals a design philosophy built around retail shelf appeal, not enduring mechanical standards. In the second place, Hyper exemplifies the risks inherent in mass merchant bicycle sourcing, where engineering standards are subordinated to retail price points. Founded in the early 1990s as a BMX racing brand, Hyper entered the big box market with a strategy centered on high-volume, low-cost production contracts. The result is a product line dominated by high-tensile steel frames, a material with a tensile strength of roughly 1.2 gigapascals, trailing the 1.5 gigapascals typical of 4130 chromoly, and offering a fatigue life reduced by nearly a third. These frames, often weighing 2 to 4 kilograms more than mid-tier aluminum or chromoly alternatives, are paired with unsealed ball-bearing hubs and low-grade linear pull brakes. Technical documentation is sparse, rarely extending beyond basic owner's manuals, and there is little transparency on bearing grades, spoke tension, or torque specifications. Community repair surveys indicate that the average cost to keep a 2023 Hyper Explorer in safe working order, including wheel truing, brake adjustment, and hub service, exceeds $120 within the first 12 months, while the used market value typically falls below $70. Aftermarket compatibility is limited, with many parts proprietary to Hyper's supply chain or discontinued after a single production run. Service intervals for hubs and bottom brackets are not published, and replacement components are often unavailable from third-party retailers. The engineering trade-offs are clear: a focus on initial affordability at the expense of long-term durability, repairability, and technical transparency. For consumers in 2025, the Hyper badge signals a product engineered to meet the demands of large retail buyers, not the expectations of riders seeking documented quality or lasting value. In the first place, Kent International exemplifies the pitfalls of private label manufacturing in the mass market bicycle segment. Founded in New Jersey in 1909 and now headquartered in Parsippany, Kent has evolved into one of the largest suppliers of bikes to U.S. big box retailers, with annual shipments exceeding 1 million units. The company's core business model centers on high-volume contracts with chains like Walmart and Target, sourcing frames and components from a rotating network of low-cost Asian original equipment manufacturers. The result is a product lineup dominated by high-tensile steel frames, a material with a tensile strength of roughly 1.2 gigapascals and a fatigue life 30% shorter than chromoly. That leads to frames that are both heavier and more susceptible to cracking under repeated stress. Component selection follows the same logic. Unsealed ball-bearing hubs, stamped steel cranks, and low-grade linear pull brakes are specified to minimize unit cost, not to maximize durability or serviceability. Technical documentation is minimal, with owner's manuals rarely extending beyond basic assembly diagrams and no published data on bearing grades, spoke tension, or torque specifications. Repair data aggregated from Road Hybrid Bike and Cora reveals that the average cost to keep a 2023 Kent Northwoods in safe working order, including wheel truing, brake adjustment, and hub service, exceeds $110 within the first 18 months, while the used market value typically drops below $60 in the same period. Aftermarket compatibility is limited, as many parts are proprietary to Kent's supply chain and discontinued after single production runs. Service intervals for hubs and bottom brackets are not published, and replacement components are often unavailable from third-party retailers. The engineering trade-offs are clear: a focus on initial affordability at the expense of long-term value, repairability, and technical transparency. For buyers in 2025, the Kent badge signals a product engineered to meet the demands of large retail buyers, not the expectations of riders seeking documented quality or lasting value. Subscribe for more evidence-based breakdowns of the brands shaping today's cycling market. Across all 10 brands, one pattern is clear. Heritage logos now mask commodity engineering when private equity and conglomerates, like Pawn Holdings with its $810 million consolidation, prioritize margins over mechanical standards. Bearing grades, fastener specs, and repairability now matter more than nostalgia. In today's market, only technical transparency, not legacy, protects buyers. Always scrutinize the spec sheet, not the story. Subscribe for more evidence-based cycling investigations.